Carol,
Dan, how are you? How was your Christmas?
good thanks. I know we chatted briefly yesterday, but you were in the middle of traveling. My Christmas was great. How are your holidays going?
The holidays were going well. Yeah, I was in Calgary. Both my sisters live out there, and my niece and nephews, and so my dad was there too. So it was nice. Yeah, nice little break to be out there. Pretty mild, lots of sunshine, which is nice. And now it's back to the rain here.
No
Now
complaints
you,
though.
you were away, right?
I was down in Tulum, Mexico. Yes,
Yeah. How was that?
it was wonderful.
Was it? Are
A
you
little bit
back
warmer
now?
than here.
You're back now?
I am back now. Yes.
Okay.
I got back on the Christmas Eve, just before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
We were
Okay.
delayed a little bit, but we made it in before Santa came, so everybody was happy.
Oh, good. And what did Santa bring this year?
He brought everybody good tidings and great joy.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. What a nice Santa.
So just for those who don't know, I've had the privilege of knowing Carol for a very long time, and I'm proud to call her a friend of mine. So I just want to say thank you for agreeing to come on today and just sharing your story.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege, Dan. We have known each other for a long time, and I've been watching
Yeah,
you
in
from
connection.
far. Oh, everything okay?
Yep, we're
Okay.
back.
Yeah, I've been watching and admiring you from afar, Dan, and we go back a long, long time, and who you are and your story and what you're doing is just so inspiring. So I'm very excited and honored to be here.
Thank you. Well, Carol, you speaking of inspiring, you wear a lot of hats yourself. So let me see if I can name some of them.
Uh-oh.
You you published your first book this year, The Brave Healing Journal.
I did.
You're an international speaker. You advocate for mental health, and you're also a coach and a volunteer. And you also are founder of the Brave Institute, which is dedicated to empowering female leaders. Does that introduction do you justice?
Thank you. Yes, you got it.
Excellent. So why don't we start with the Brave Institute? Maybe you could tell the listeners what it's about and what it entails.
Sure. So I actually recently changed the name. It's actually the Brave Initiative. So after I was sort of in a treatment center, I thought institute was not the right word anymore. So it's the Brave Initiative. But really, it's an opportunity for people to step into the bravest version of themselves and figure out. I think a lot of people say, oh, you've got to, find your voice. And even I say, find your brave. I think we all have it, but sometimes we need to be reminded of it. And so I do a lot of work with leaders and organizations in order to really tap into the highest potential of their people. And then specifically, I have a program called Brave Leader just for high potential female leaders to help them, gain the confidence and the competence that they need to be able to use their voice and share their ideas and, try new things and not be afraid to get messy or to get it wrong. And then, in outside of the corporate world, just really empowering everybody to recognize that they don't need any more qualifications or experience or until they get this or get that before they want to, take action on those things that they really want to do. And to, not be afraid to start where you are.
Fantastic. Speaking of being brave, like most people, I have a healthy amount of fear of public speaking, especially on large stages, something that you're very familiar with. What piece of advice would you give somebody who finds themselves in that position, in particular, the leaders with whom you're speaking to and you coach? What would you tell them?
Specifically before like giving a presentation, Dan, do you mean like what to keep in mind for that? Or
Yeah,
about
just
fear in
um,
general?
the fear of public speaking. Is there something that you can really just tell people that
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things. So one, I think a lot of people think that speaking to larger crowds is different than, speaking one-on-one or 1 to 3. But anytime, like you and I right now, technically are public speaking, right? And
Sure.
it's really just about having a conversation. And so when you're speaking to one person, or you're speaking to 1,000, it really is just making it as conversational, gosh, as possible. I mean, my public speaking skills really showing off here. Um, and and recognizing that it is about a conversation. So yes, you have your messages and you have your ideas, but it's less about how you want to show up. And I mean, caveat, like it's less about you and what you look like and whether or not you're going to impress and impact and leave people changed, and more about the audience and how you want to be for them. So yes, it's about how you're showing up, but more about, are you connecting to the message? Are you connecting to the people? Are you engaged and in the moment? Are you going to be there for them? I think a lot of the fear around public speaking is, oh my God, are they going to like me? Do I look good? Am I going to sound good? Do I have the right words? And no matter how brilliant of a script that you write, and no doubt there are some amazing scripts out there, if you're not actually present with the audience, it's not going to have any impact whatsoever. And so don't worry or get too caught up on your perfect slides or your perfect scripts and opening, and really just be present with the audience, and remind yourself that it is about having a conversation. And if you can impact one person in that room and speak to one person, then you're winning.
Well said. Well said. So you've been always very open about your own struggles with mental health. I know your book leans into that, as do some of your talks. Would you share a little bit about that journey that you've been on?
Sure. I love that you say you've always been open. I wasn't for a while, but part of the reason why I feel like I need to share right now is because, I think probably like a lot of people out there, I spent a lot of time trying to prove and look good and be perfect and please and, get the accolades and the validation, because ultimately I didn't know how to give myself my own, my own validation, my own, I hadn't created my own barometer for success, which is one of the big things that I sort of talk about, that until you realize you're enough exactly as you are, wherever you are, you're never going to feel that. You cannot rely on other people. But, I spent a lot of time trying to do and be, and life got pretty busy. And then my life sort of imploded. So, I was doing this amazing in-house consulting opportunity at this beautiful resort in Tofino. And all of a sudden I was, running pretty fast. And basically what culminated was me eventually getting pulled off the floor as I was feverishly folding men's pants that were out of size line. It was very, I don't know, like a massive deal. I thought that I was being secretly trained to be a spy, and so I needed to have everything perfectly aligned in order in case other spies needed to be able to, find things that were out of alignment for the special codes and secrets to get you to the next place. Anyway, I was handcuffed and arrested and brought to immediately to the hospital, tranquilized, quickly admitted to the psychiatric emergency unit, where I spent the next numerous days. It was a pretty traumatizing experience, to say the least. And I was subsequently diagnosed with bipolar. And, it turns out that I had been living with this illness for probably 20 years, undiagnosed, but I had only had what are called hypomanic episodes. So periods where you just feel like you're on top of the world, you have all the answers, you have these grandiose ideas for yourself and your life, and all the things that make you feel good, all those like pleasurable activities, spending a lot of money, drinking a lot, being promiscuous, all those things are really, really heightened. And I think a lot of my, family and friends just sort of thought, oh, that's Carol going into one of her states. But some of the behaviors that you can get into and the choices that you make are not necessarily good ones. And so I had these really high highs in my life, and I had some pretty low lows, but didn't share anything with anyone, because, I was brought up in a way where, you just slap on a smile and everything is great and don't let anybody see, anything other than that. So anyway, after that diagnosis, I was in and out of 5 different hospitals and treatment centers. And I had, after that really, really high period where I, put a whole lot of debt on my credit card and did a whole lot of things that I'm still very ashamed about. I also went into a really low. And, I've had, and you've had lots of challenges in my life, and physical, mental, emotional, all the things. But I will say, like, being down and depressed is something that I would not wish on my worst enemy. And I think until it's something that you've experienced yourself, it's really, really hard to understand. It's really, really hard to know. But there were days where I really did not think that I would go on. I was already writing goodbye letters to my friends and family. Anyway, luckily I came out of that. But I was in denial for a long time. I think these diagnoses and these they become so much our identity. And I think there's a lot of people who are suffering in silence, and there's a lot of people who think that it means there's something wrong with them. I know that was me for a long time. I didn't share for almost 2 years. I came completely off of social media. I wasn't able to work for a lot of that. And having to come to terms with the fact that this is what I have, but not who I am, was really, really big. And I think in that journey, I realized I have to share this eventually, not only because I've been someone who's always been about vulnerability and authenticity and the importance of sharing who you are to connect deeper with other people, but also because I wanted to let other people know that whatever they may be struggling with, it doesn't take away from who they are. It's not their identity. It's something that they're living with. And to make it okay to not be okay, as cliche as that line is, I do think that's important. I think, I'm a positive person, and I know you are as well. And it's really important to see the silver lining wherever possible. And it's also okay to sit in those tough emotions too, and not make ourselves feel wrong about it, because there are a lot of things that are just out of our control, and when it comes to our brain and our mind and, those, how those chemicals work, it's very hard to understand. And I think we need to be more compassionate towards ourselves in terms of, making it okay to feel whatever we're feeling and not make ourselves feel bad.
Absolutely. I think you said it's okay to not be okay. And I think that's very resonating for a lot of people out there.
I think we work so hard to keep it all together. And of all of the thousands of leaders I've worked with all over the world, nobody, no matter how much they seem to have it all put together, nobody has everything all figured out. It's impossible, right? It's a journey we're on, and we're doing the best that we can every day. And I truly believe that. But yeah, we got to be a little more gentle with ourselves too.
So I want to talk about your book here. I ordered a copy myself. I read it. And I just want to congratulate you, because you are giving people a very powerful tool to help them regain control over their own lives.
Thank you.
And I know myself just how cathartic putting pen to paper can be. What led you to write this, and what inspirations were you drawing upon?
I think it was when I was going through my really tough time. The thought of doing all the things you're supposed to do on a daily basis was very overwhelming. But I think being able to commit to small things allow you to feel like you've accomplished something, and then gives you confidence and courage to keep going. And I know I've always been a big journaler. I think it's so, as you said, cathartic, and really important to be able to have a safe space for you to unravel, for you to share your thoughts and your feelings, and to make sense of all of those things that are always running around in our minds. And I think when I was in a really dark place, being able to turn to journaling was really important. But I also think it can be also very overwhelming. And so to have simple prompts, simple ideas, something that you can commit to doing, something small every day, it's a really easy way for you to, to just go to this journal and ask the questions. And I think for me, it was also really important to have tools alongside that. I think journals are great, but I think to be able to combine it with the science behind why journaling is important. I share the 5 big tools that saved my life. And so I talk about mindfulness, the importance of connection, being physical, moving your body, the practice of gratitude. I talk about all those big tools. And then I also share my story as well, because I think, when you can actually connect with a person, somebody has been through it themselves, and it gives a little bit more context and credibility, but also like, oh wow, maybe I'm not the only one who's gone through something like this. And so I get vulnerable, I get real, I share about it all. And then I give these tools. And I made it a 3-month journey because the biggest through my journey, I wasn't ready. Like I had ideas and I started, writing down things that I may want to include one day if I were to do it, but I really needed to go through that whole thing myself before I was able to actually create it. So there's 3 powerful phases, three powerful months that you go through. The first is awareness, like just being aware of everything that's going on, what's working, what's not working, what's real, time to get honest with yourself in terms of where you're at. And then the second phase is acceptance. And this was by far the most challenging for me. We all have things that are outside of our control that are not what we would want, not what we think we deserve, not certainly what we had hoped or wished or expected for ourselves in our lives. But until we can actually get to a place of accepting where we are, then we're not going to be able to move on. We're going to stay stuck. And so I share about, the most profound thing I learned when I was in treatment called the acceptance equation. So that's all in there. And then the third phase is action. So once you're aware of where you're at and you're honest with yourself, and then you're ready to actually accept all that is and all that isn't, from that place, you can then take small steps of consistent action to help build that brave muscle and build that momentum to have you keep going so that you can, start to realize while a lot of things are out of your control, there are some things that you can do. And I think it's those small things that actually make a big difference. And so being able to do certain things on a regular basis and be able to recognize and celebrate your progress as you go is a really powerful habit.
Well put. I also just want to say I love how you made mention earlier, just the simple prompts and making it easy, digestible, like daily tasks. I really enjoyed that format because it's not overwhelming. It's something that you can do every day, and before you realize it, you've gotten into a habit of doing it, which I think is the biggest thing in starting anything new, is turning a new thing into a habit. And before you know it, it's become second nature.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do. It is so daunting starting something new, as I'm sure you know, and it takes just a split second to, fall off that bandwagon and a while to get back on. But the easier and the simpler, and I love that you said digestible, the better, like it literally 2 minutes in the beginning of your day and 2 minutes at the end of the day to answer questions that are already asked for you. It can be daunting to have an empty page, be like, okay, what am I going to talk about? Where do I start? And if I don't write 5 pages, then there's no point in even beginning. Like all of that is so not true. And yeah, getting into the habit of it, of just taking that moment to reflect when you start your day, when you end your day, is more powerful, I think, than people realize.
So moving on to, well, you know exactly where this is going. Moving on, in light of recent occurrences, how would you say you've been able to action in your own life some of the things you wrote in the book about? Oh, geez, I think you know what I'm trying to say here. Just really just coming to terms with things that we can't control, and making an action plan and just moving forwards. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about what's going on, if you would, and how your own experiences have hopefully helped you be able to approach it with a greater sense of peace.
Sure. And thank you for being so careful or so gentle in going there. So I was diagnosed in September with cancer, and as you, like, totally out of the blue, unexpected, certainly not what I wanted or would have thought. But I think having gone through what I'd gone through previously and having these tools has helped tremendously. I think we need to take the time to actually acknowledge what's happening as well and realize that we're not going to just, check our email and get on those, get on our calendar of events right away. We need to take some time to process, to, maybe take a break, to take a breather, to connect inwards, and nothing wrong with that. But then as you, start to get through it, okay, what are some tools that I can lean on? And the things that I talk about in that journal were huge for me. Connection was huge. I don't think that, that I would be here with a smile on my face if it weren't for the people in my life. And I know you recognize that too, right? I think we're really fortunate to have some awesome people in our lives, because relationships and people are everything, especially when you're going through some tough times. And then I remember the day that I had my first big, I was at the Princess Margaret with my oncologist, and laying out the land with me, and that night I was filling out my journal, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how I'm feeling, and what I was grateful for. I felt more grateful than I had in a long time, because I realized I wasn't alone. I realized I had I had what I needed, and one day at a time. And I realized too that, yeah, I mean, so many people have so many things that they're struggling with, they're living with it, they're going through, and a lot of them are doing it on their own. And I think that's so hard and so sad. And I think to continue to be grateful for the things that you can be grateful is really important, because there are always things that we can be down about and sad about, and absolutely be justified to be sad. And there's a time and a place for a good pity party. And trust me, I've thrown myself a lot of those over the time, Haagen-Dazs and chocolate sauce and all. But I also think at some point you need to say, okay, what can I do? And I think having those small tools, are really, really important. It's like, what can you, how can you take care of yourself with in the ways that you can? So, you took this to a whole other level, like physicality, and, can you exercise? Are you getting the right sleep and nutrition? And, can you work on your mindset? What are you grateful for? What are some small habits you can employ to work on yourself? I think, especially, I think all of the time, but especially when there's so much that is out of your hands, and you just don't even know what the next day is going to bring, to be able to have a few small anchors is so important. So whether or not that is journaling, whether or not that is going for a walk, whether or not that is, curling up with a nice cup of tea and your favorite book every day, or making sure you have those conversations with people who just bring a smile to your face, having a few anchors are so important, because it's very, very hard to feel like you have no control in your life. And so the things that you control are even more so important.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, you're hitting a bit of a note with me. Yeah. Geez. Well, Carol, I don't really have anything else I want to ask of you, or anything I want you to share. I just want to thank you, I guess, for being an example yourself of how to be brave. You are an inspiration to many people, and yeah, I've definitely been following along to your social channels once you shared your news, and you've handled it with grace and tact, and just I'm honored to call you my friend, because it's wonderful.
Well, I feel the same way, Dan. Honestly, inspired beyond what you realize. Am I allowed to ask you a question? Because I feel
of course, please.
You have such strength that you draw on, and I have never ever once seen you complain or speak negatively. It's just always positive and go. What is that one thing that you tell yourself, if you did that one thing you tell yourself, or that one thing you remind yourself of on those days that are really tough? Do you have a mantra? Do you have a ritual? or, do you allow yourself to feel certain things and then say, okay, 5 minutes now I'm going to get back into it? What are your key?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. First of all, I want to prove that no matter what, I'm still here. I'm still strong, and I'm getting stronger every day. That's really it. I'm just not allowing the negative thoughts to creep in. Like, don't get me wrong, they do creep in, but I remind myself how grateful I am to be surrounded by the people I am, and that there's just so much I want to do, that I want to be an inspiration for my son. I want to be an inspiration for my wife. Like my friends, my family, you name it. So, I think actually, to call back to something you mentioned in your book, I couldn't agree less, or sorry, I couldn't agree more, with you in the staying active part. The the day I got out of surgery was the day I started my Ironman journey.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. To put it in, to frame it well, just stop listening to other people and the naysayers, and just do what you want to do, because you're stronger than you ever realize.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dan. And you certainly are a living, breathing example of an inspiration to so
You're
many.
welcome.
Yeah, it's
Thank
amazing.
you too.
Thank you. When do we have the Ironman date?
It's in November. Can't remember when, but I've signed up for the Ironman in November. I've been doing a whole bunch of half Ironmans to date. I think I have number 5 and 6 coming up this year.
Oh my gosh.
But other than that, the full is in November, and hopefully I'll make it to the starting line, because I have a year of chemotherapy ahead of me. So I'm just hoping I can stay strong enough, not get injured, and stay positive enough to make it to the starting line. And if I do that, I've already won.
Already won. Well, you've already signed up, and that's a huge win, and you have all of us cheering you on. So I have no doubt you're going to make it there, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kara. Well, thank you so much for being so brave, being yourself, and for sharing your story today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan, and for creating the
You're
space.
welcome. All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.